Ayekwe, Neknamalita, and this is my channel, The Midnight Librarian. Today I will be talking about my August 2021 wrap-up. I don't know where August went. I still feel like it's the end of July. I keep having to remember that it is now September, which you wouldn't think would be that hard considering how cold it just like feels like it got overnight. Yeah, August just kind of flew by. My university started virtual classes in August. We opened up our library partially as much as we could during as we're under construction. Face-to-face classes start next week. So to all those who are going back to university and going back to school, I think classes started for K through 12 this week. So for everybody going back to class face-to-face or virtual or however, university or high school or whatever, like, may the odds be ever in your favor. Good luck, you have this, and take care of yourself. Kind of flew by. I feel like I was definitely back in a slump in August, despite, I was having issues with completing books. Physically and audibly, which through the summer I was having issues, but I heavily relied on audiobooks. But for August, it really just kind of tested me. I would get like 20 to 30% into a book and just want to quit because it was taking too long. Not that it wasn't interesting, I was just like, by that point, for some reason, I was like, are we there yet? Like, can we be done? And just wasn't feeling it. So, yeah. For instance, I had started The Vanished Birds by Simon Jimenez. Got 30% into the audiobook and just wasn't feeling it anymore. I'd started The Last Werewolf by Glenn Duncan and got like a couple pages in and felt guilty. The same with The Galaxy and the Ground Within by Becky Chambers. Just wasn't. I was feeling guilty with those two because I was reading those physically. I still haven't made it very far into Sorrowland. Wasn't feeling it, so picked up My Heart is a Chainsaw. Still not very far into it. And basically, anytime I picked up any other book that wasn't this book, I would feel bad and try to get back into this one. It's not that I'm not interested in this. It's just, and I've talked to other people about it too. The first half of this is fairly slow. It's a very slow burn. And because I'm not into slashers, never have been, and this is very slasher heavy in terms of information, it's all going kind of over my head, which there's a disconnect there. So I'm still hoping to finish it, still hoping to put out a review for it at some point. So there we are with that. Yeah, so that's what I'm currently reading, as well as currently listening to Goldilocks by Laura Lamb. So let's hope I can get through those. Now let's get into my stats for the books that I did finish in August. For August, I did read 7 books, which again kind of surprised me, though. Yeah, it kind of surprised me. It didn't feel like I read very much at all. I read 2,250 pages, and the average rating was 3.71, and I'll do the rating breakdown. I'm just on the particular page I'm on. So I read 7 books. Of those 7 books, 2 were nonfiction, 2 were sci-fi, 2 were fantasy, and 1 was horror. And then I had 0 1 stars, 0 2 stars, 0 3 stars. Oh wait, no, 1 3 star, 3 3.5 stars, 1 4 star, no, 2 4 stars, and 1 4.5 star, and 0 5 stars. So still very mid-range. I feel like this has been a problem for a large majority of people for 2021, is that it feels very mid-road middle in terms of ratings this year. There is no like really like or really just disliked. It's just very meh. So, and yeah, that's what it feels for me. There was a couple of them this time that like I enjoyed, though I found issues with some of them. Audience, I have 4 adult and 3 YA. So the first book I read was Hawaii's Story About Hawaii's Queen by Liliuokalani. This is basically a book that Liliuokalani wrote in order to make her plea to United States citizens to help in some way for Hawaii to get its sovereignty back. Liliuokalani was Hawaii's last queen, and I enjoyed it. It was a little information heavy, but ultimately just you could feel Liliuokalani's emotion in it, and it was really, let's see, when was this published? This was published in 1898. What I really disliked in seeing the reviews for this book in Goodreads is that people were rating it low because they thought it was going to be some cultural exploration of Hawaii. They were just like, oh, I didn't get any details of Hawaii, or didn't talk about the dances, or didn't talk about this or that. And it's just like, that's not what this book is about. This book should definitely be a required reading before you even go to Hawaii, I feel like. Just so you know, not that you should be going to Hawaii at this point. They are suffering through the pandemic just as much as we are, if not more. And tourism is not going to help that. I highly, highly suggest reading this before going to Hawaii. It really put things in perspective for me. And like, I've always wanted to visit, but don't necessarily want to feed into that tourist trap that America has seemed to make it. So it's really, yeah, definitely just a powerful read. Yes, there is a lot of kind of info dump in terms of people and dates, but like by the time Liliuokalani goes into America's takeover of Hawaii, it's scary, and it's frightening, and it's just, it's really just frustrating. So I think on Goodreads I haven't rated it, and if anything I'm just going to give it 5 stars so that people will read it. But in my own private ratings, it's 4 stars. But yeah, very, very powerful read. Next, I did a reread of Walking Your Octopus by Brian Kesinger. Brian Kesinger is an artist that was in, I believe Disney does like an artist program. And I've seen his works before. He does these like Calvin and Hobbes style Star Wars comics from time to time that I've really enjoyed. This is one of his like independent projects that I really got into, particularly in high school and early college. I was really into steampunk, and this was like the epitome of like adorable for me. So essentially this book, one is filled with his art, and it's just absolutely gorgeous. But basically this book just kind of discusses if like an octopus and how you would take care of it as a pet. And it's very like Victorian-esque. Yeah, just steampunky Victorian-esque, and I absolutely loved it. I did give it 4 stars, 4.5 stars. Just because there's like some little things that I would personally like. In fact, my partner actually got me a print of one of these. I'll have Brian Kesinger's website linked down below. Like I said, really enjoy his art. His tea illustrations are just phenomenal. I still really enjoy his art. But yeah, just little things in here, like for instance, diversity. Like I get that it's like it's supposed to be based in Victorian England, though I'm sure there was some diversity at some point. So that's just my current, like, I think when I first read this, I gave it like 5 out of 5 stars because I didn't see anything wrong with it. Now I feel like there could have been a bit more diversity, but ultimately like really do enjoy this. And the reason why I reread that was because my partner also got me the next book in the series. And I think there's only 2 to this, and I wish he would create more, but that is Traveling with Your Octopus. So same style, obviously it's the same artist, but this time they're traveling around the world, which I think, and the illustrations are just as phenomenal. I rated this lower actually at a 3.5. No, it was just a 3. It was a solid 3. Reason for this is like because they're traveling, and I loved like some of the things like for instance, the one that I just showed you of them being underwater and kind of like exploring at like Atlantis ruins. But then there's other ones that get into like going into different cultures. There was just different ones that I don't know how comfortable I was. Like he goes into like India and Hawaii and just other places that I don't know. I don't know if I'm comfortable or not with it. Of just like, okay, like if you as a tourist were to go to this, would it be appropriate to get henna or to dress up as a geisha or etc. You know what I mean? I don't know. But that's also just my ignorance of like not having traveled and don't out traveled very much, particularly like right now we can't. But like I don't know, just that knowledge. I don't know. I don't know what I'm trying to mean. I know that my partner would just say relax and enjoy the book. It's just the book. But, I mean, representation matters. So, like, I don't know how much research Brian Kesinger did to accurately represent these places. That's my hesitancy with this book. Hi, editing Melita here. It's also just a hesitancy in terms of representation, as I was kind of getting to trying to say, of just like if, for instance, he had illustrated America in terms of representing the indigenous people of the United States, like how would he do that accurately in a way that doesn't put everyone in a stereotype? So that's my thing of him representing these different cultures. And I think he took care in that it doesn't show necessarily other people, but it does have his main character, Victoria, and her pet octopus dress up, which I know that in our culture, like, it's like a ceremonial thing of like, we have a time and a place, and no, not everyone gets to dress in regalia. So that's my problem with it. But it's also this lack of knowledge of just like, I don't know if it's appropriate to wear a geisha outfit or if anyone can have henna. So like I said, it's the lack of travel on my part and the lack of knowledge. And that's where the hesitancy comes in with knowing that Brian Kesinger is a white guy, a white American illustrator, how accurate it is that he's illustrating these other cultures, if that makes sense. Next, I listened to a book from Libro FM. I will leave my link for that down in the description down below. Basically what that does is that if you go to Libro FM through my link and sign up past the free trial, once you start paying, I get an extra book credit. But yeah, so I ended up listening to, because I went down to the Bay Area. Holy cow, what's that? Like, I was at the beginning of August. I went down to the Bay Area and listened to this audiobook, and absolutely really enjoyed it, and that was Below the Edge of Darkness by Edith Witter. This is a memoir of exploring light and life in the deep sea. Edith Witter is she a marine biologist? Basically her research is on bioluminescence. And so this was a fun book of just like learning how she got into that particular area of study, as well as her struggles through it, her self-struggles as like going through some pretty major surgery in college, as well as finding her place in the science community in a time, I'd say in a time where women had a hard time getting into STEM, but women still are having a hard time getting into STEM, particularly if you are a woman of color. So there's that element to it, but also like her scientific explorations, and actually part of that was finding the giant octopus. No, finding the giant squid, which was like, I mean, I love this cover. Yeah, it was just a really enjoyable listen, and so hence why I bought the the hardcover version as well. Just particularly just because with nonfictions, I enjoy listening to them audibly. It almost reminds me of a podcast, but I enjoy having a physical copy too in case I ever want to reference them in the future. Particularly if I really did enjoy them. So yeah, this one was really fun and really enjoyed it. Below the Edge of Darkness, as I was heading to the Bay Area, as I was heading back, I started The Dark Tide by Alicia Jasinska. This is a YA fantasy that is set in a land where that is slowly being eaten by the ocean. It's being, and every year there is a sacrifice made by this community, particularly by the Witch Queen. The Witch Queen chooses a young man to be the sacrifice to the ocean, to bait off higher tides that would swallow up this land. So we follow Lena Dirk, who is convinced that this year her brother is going to be the one taken. So with the help of a boy that she's had a crush on, they tried to get him out of there's like a festival that goes on every year, and the Witch Queen hides herself and basically ends up convincing the boy she's going to sacrifice to kiss her. So in this particular area of the town where the sacrifice is chosen, Lena's brother is there, and with the help of the crush and previous sacrifice, the only sacrifice that has lived, Thomas Lynn tries to go help her brother, only to get Thomas Lynn chosen. So Lena feels guilty and feels like it's her fault, and so tries to go rescue Thomas Lynn from a fate that he's already had to face before, and ends up sacrificing herself in place of Thomas Lynn. So this is a sapphic romance, I believe, and we get multiple perspectives in this, between Lena and Eva, the Witch Queen. I ultimately really enjoyed this. What I particularly really enjoyed was that world building. What I didn't enjoy was the characters, because of course, being a fantasy YA, Lena and Lena's parents are just not there. But it's never really explained what they do. It's like they are on a ship, that's all I'm aware of, and they're gone, and they're waiting for their return at some point. But they have like a bunch of aunts and uncles that are conveniently, they can slip away from easily. There's really no adults, which always kind of bugged me. And then it was kind of insta-lovey for me, really. But I enjoyed the magical element, and that was the other thing. So the Witch Queen's castle is like I enjoyed the atmosphere, but when it came to the Witch Queen's castle, it very much felt more like a fan fiction, where there was like a larger group of characters than I expected, and it felt really convenient. So I don't know. But I don't know. That was like the couple things but I liked the castle itself in terms of it playing magical tricks on people and having kind of like a mind of its own. And actually the narration I really enjoyed as well, particularly when we were in Eva's perspective, because she very much reminded me of Raven from Teen Titans, not Teen Titans Go, Teen Titans. So there was that element that like was making me like her. She was also very like moody, and brooding. Lena, I had issues with. I never quite understood some of her decision making, and she ultimately just kind of frustrated me. I definitely preferred Eva. I didn't quite understand Lena's brother either. But yeah, there was like little things that bugged me, but ultimately I really liked the darker fantasy element that tied around water. I'm finding that I really do enjoy that, and after reading the Below the Edge of Darkness, I think it's really fun. I do enjoy water-based elements. So after the Dark Tide, I had really actually just wanted more dark fantasies or dark stories that had to do with water, either in, on, or around water. And ultimately, I just really wanted to reread Into the Jotting Deep by Mira Grant, aka Seanan McGuire, and should have just done that because it feels like after the Dark Tide, like everything was just kind of meh to me. Not that there was anything wrong with the next particular books, it was just like I wasn't giving myself what I really wanted, so everything just kind of fell flat. That's when I had the issue of like getting with The Vanished Birds by Sam and Jimenez. I just couldn't get into the book, as well as the other physical books that I was trying to read. I just really just wanted more water-based fantasies or horror. So if you have any, because the only one that keeps coming to mind is Into the Drowning Deep by Mira Grant, please recommend them down in the comments down below. I would love to hear it. Next book I read was The Witchmark by C.L. Polk. This is C.L. Polk is a Canadian non-binary author. And this one follows Miles Singer in a world that is very reminiscent of Edwardian England. Yeah, I did enjoy this, though I feel like I gave this a 3.5 star. But I feel like that was an element of the time I was reading it. I just wasn't, this isn't exactly what I wanted to read. Like I said, I was wanting more dark stories like in, on, or surrounded by water. And I feel like if I read this again, I'd rate it higher. Ultimately, we're following Miles Singer, who is in an Edwardian style world that has a world war going on, and noble families kind of have magical abilities that shape the control of shape the fates of their nation. Miles didn't like the role that his family was trying to put him into, and so ran away to join this war and become a doctor. After serving his time, he now works for a VA clinic that is heavily underfunded, and there's something wrong with these patients that are coming in. This is set in a time where PTSD is something that isn't as heavily explored and is actually kind of scoffed at. But Miles has deep concern for these veterans that are coming home and wanting to, or successfully killing their families and friends. So when he gets word that he needs to empty his current beds so that more veterans are coming home, can fill them, he is heavily concerned because he doesn't believe that any of his patients are ready to go home. At the same time, there is a man that comes into this VA clinic that asks for Miles specifically by his old name that he was trying to leave behind. And Miles feels threatened that his old life will be pushed to the forefront after he tried so hard to bury it. So this is a very interesting book, and I liked the magic system of sorts. It was really interesting. I wish there was a bit more world building, but ultimately just really enjoyed it. And Miles's love interest, Miles is attracted to the same sex or the same gender, and his love interest is just the sweetest, and I absolutely enjoy him. What I didn't like, it was almost border on insta-lovey, but was far enough away from it that I was okay with it. What I didn't like, and what I find with certain books, is that they don't write this right, or for me to enjoy it, really. This is my own opinion, but there was like a marriage proposal in here, and it kind of killed the romance for me. Um, I've seen a couple of books do this. Enchantment or Ravens is one, and I apologize for the light spoilers. And this is another that basically a marriage proposal is there. I don't think it's written well. It kind of kills the romance for me because I feel like there's like that the romance was doing well, but it was still short enough that I was like, a marriage proposal seemed really just out of left field for me. Not that I'm against marriage at all, like, do what you want, but like the way these are written, it was just really frustrating, and I didn't like the fact that the book kind of ended with that, but not to the point where I don't want to read the rest of the series. I am very interested in that. I'm curious as where it's going to go. Darker than I expected it to be. So there's that. And there's also this, I want to say a content warning of sorts for forced outing. Like I said, Miles is attracted to the same gender. But that's not what is forcibly out. He's forcibly outed is the magic. So it was really interesting to see that element to it. So, but yeah, I hope to eventually get to the rest of the series. This next book I didn't expect to read so soon, actually. Though, like, I was hoping to save it between October and December. However, after reading it, it makes sense that I read it when I did, as it does feel like a late summer kind of horror read. But that is Nostratu by Joe Hill. I had been interested in this for a while, but never picked it up. Never got a copy until Jesse from Bow Ties and Books had mentioned how they really enjoyed the book, so that really made me want to pick it up. And it was available through my library, so I listened to it. I really enjoyed the narration, first off. Well, Logan, let me tell you about the book. We follow Victoria, or Vic McQueen, who has an uncanny thing for finding lost things. When she rides her bicycle over a rickety bridge in the woods near her house, she always emerges in the places that she needs to be. Vic doesn't tell anyone about her unusual ability. Charles Talent Manx has a gift of his own, and he likes to take children for rides in his 1938 Rolls-Royce Wraith with a vanity plate N0S482. In this car, he and his innocence can slip out of everyday world to an astonishing playground of amusements he calls Christmas Land. This road that he takes to Christmas Land ends up transforming into a twisted and unstoppable version that helps their benefactor. When Vic decides to go looking for trouble, she ends up finding her way inevitably to Charlie, and is the only kid to escape Charlie's twisted imagination. But now that she's grown up, all she wants to do is forget. But Charlie Manx has not stopped thinking about Vic McQueen, and now he's on the road again, and he is refusing to slow down until he catches up with her. So this is fairly dark. It's not what I expected. I didn't read the entire synopsis before I read it. So for some reason I thought throughout this whole book Vic McQueen was going to stay a child, and she doesn't. And so when I realized that she doesn't, I was kind of upset, and really just debating on just stopping and not picking it up till later. But I'm thankful that I got through it, because it did ultimately turn out better than I expected. Honestly, it's not what I was originally thinking it was going to contain, but ultimately I did enjoy it better than I thought I would. However, it is dark and there are content warnings. Let me see if I can remember them all. Of mention of domestic violence, mention of drug use, alcohol abuse, death of a dog. There's graphic detailed descriptions of death and injury. Oh, mentions of rape. This, yeah, very content heavy in terms, I mean, it's a horror book. So I really liked the narration for this book. off the top of my, I can't think of who narrates it off the top of my head. Oh, Kate Mulgrew. I really enjoyed Kate Mulgrew's narration of this. However, there was an element, when it got to Charlie Manx's voice, low-key reminded me of Gargamel from the Smurfs, which wasn't necessarily a bad thing. It just kind of made me giggle every now and then. Yeah, like I said, it was better than I expected. There were some elements that I mean, I don't know how exactly I would change them. I'm not a writer, so it's hard for me to judge that. There were elements that popped out to me of just kind of like, that's privilege. For instance, at one point, Vic McQueen is being chased by FBI agents, and she notes that, and cops, and she notes that their guns, when they come to her, their guns are still holstered, and she makes a note, like there's a note in there that she believes that less than 50% of them ever really pull their guns from their holster. And it just kind of made me think, going, maybe to you. So, not that I have very much interaction with cops, but I think that's a very privileged thing to say as a white woman. So, yeah. I really kind of enjoyed the fantasy elements of this, of Vic McQueen going over her bridge. We also meet some other characters, like Charlie Manx, not like Charlie Manx, but like Charlie Manx and Vic McQueen, who have the same concept of other worlds, and I really like that element, particularly when it came to like the author's note at the end. We got to hear from Joe Hill and him talking about these elements, yeah, and as well as like another content warning for mental health, because Vic McQueen does end up going into hospitals and ends up getting medication as well as therapy for her mental health, because like of what she's been through. It's not a plot twist at all, but it is like an element that it kind of keeps her back from believing certain things, and I enjoyed that aspect of it, that like Vic McQueen is not this goody two shoes person, that there's elements that are wrong with her, that she's human. So when it came to, it was just, all these characters were just very human. I'm stuck between giving it a 3.5 and a 4. I don't think I enjoyed it as much as a 4, but I did enjoy it, if that makes sense. This is not my first Joe Hill. I have read another book by him, Horns, and I hope to read more from him, because ultimately I do enjoy his writing, but so far better than his father's. So yeah, those were the books that I read in August. If you've read any of them, please let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments down below. Please, no spoilers. And yeah, if you've made it this far, be sure to give this video a thumbs up. If you have yet to do so already, hit the subscribe button and the little bell icon to be notified when I post more content. Hopefully September will be better. I'm really hoping it is, because I am excited for these readathons. I hope that you're taking care of yourself and that you are enjoying the books. You're in the mental mindset to enjoy the books you're reading. Check out my raise awareness links down in the description down below. There are so many. News is just, it's something. Yeah. Otherwise, I will see you in my next video very soon. Chew.